Hey, so I just want to get this off my chest before the big fight tonight. And the question I have is Canelo Alvarez a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest? And the reason I asked that question is I was watching that Netflix special that they had for the fight. It's like a 2-episode Canelo versus Crawford special. And in the second episode, at about the 23-minute mark, it has Canelo getting out of the Escalade, right? He's going to the gym, and as he's stepping out of the Escalade, he makes this face like that first step is gonna hurt. And I look at it, and like they say, game recognizes game, or real recognizes real. Well, bad knees recognizes bad knees. And it's like, man, I make that face when I get out of the Escalade too. It's like, I know how, it's like, does Canelo have bad knees? And it just, that I watched it over, and he like, sure enough, he makes like that grimace as he's stepping out of the Escalade. Maybe it's nothing, I thought, but maybe Canelo's got bad knees. And then like later that day, I'm watching this Showbiz, and he's talking about this rumor that Crawford has a bad shoulder. And he says like, oh yeah, Crawford's bad shoulder and Canelo's bad knees. And I was like, huh? Does Canelo have bad knees? Because it kind of looked like it in the that video. You know, I didn't think nothing of it, but now I heard like two different points, right? And so then I happened to be, so I look it up, and sure enough, in 2018, and I remember he had knee surgery to remove a cyst from his right knee. And then when he fought Triple G the third time in 2021, he said, oh yeah, I feel good for this camp. It's the first time I've run in camp in 3 years. So this guy's knees are so bad that he hadn't been running for 3 years. In his 3 years worth of training camps, he hadn't been running because of those bad knees. And then happened to be watching Canelo versus Triple G 2, which was arguably Canelo's greatest fight, right? He beats Triple G in the first fight. Triple G has this pressure, this come forward Mexican style pressure, and Canelo kind of likes to fight in spurts. And so he'd fight in spurts and back up, and he'd fight in spurts and back up, and Triple G had this just pressure on him, right? And that pressure seemed like it gassed out Canelo. And it seemed like by the fourth round, Canelo was gassed out, and Triple G was getting him. And to his credit, in the final 3 rounds, Canelo started fighting back and maybe pulled off a draw. Some people thought Triple G won, but whatever, the judges gave him a draw, and he was able to have the second fight. And in the second fight, Canelo said, forget it. You want Mexican style, we're going to fight Mexican style. I'm not taking a step back. We're going to fight in the middle of the ring. And he was beating Triple G, and he looked great. But to Triple G's credit, in that second fight, seems like in the second half, he kind of started figuring him out. And he said it was like, Triple G's Mexican style, but Canelo is Mexican. And when you try to fight Mexican style against a Mexican, and at least in that fight, the Mexican was winning. And kind of seemed like Triple G made some adjustments, reverted back to maybe Eastern European style, and was kind of fighting at the end of his jab and in and out, and seemed like he started being more competitive, at least maybe, and winning some rounds. And And but nevertheless, they gave the fight to Canelo. But if you look in the 12th round, Canelo kind of slipped with his lead left foot. His left foot kind of slipped, and he went down. It wasn't from a punch, and they didn't call it a drop, but he went down. He fell on his right knee, his bad one. His right knee hit the canvas, and he went down kind of because you could kind of make an argument when he should have been able to hold himself up even with that slip, but those weak knees gave out, and he went down. They didn't rule it a knockdown, but after that, in the 12th round of a really close fight, Canelo was like in the middle of the ring a few times, at least twice. He's like, come on, fight me here. You know what I mean? And you could say, why did he do that? One, he wanted to fight, Mexican style. Two, maybe because his knees were bad. And it kind of gave me that feeling like when you're a dad, a middle-aged dad, and you're playing with the little kid, and the little kid wants you to chase him. And as a dad, you're like, I can't get down on the ground like that, I can't play like that because I got these bad knees, just come to me, we could play here. But the little kid's like running around laughing, you're trying to chase him, and it's like, man, I can't keep up with this little kid because he's got all that nice soft cartilage in his knees and I don't. He kind of was like, come here, Triple G, fight me here in the middle of the ring. I can't be chasing around with these bad knees. That's the kind of sense that I had. And so I started seeing, like, does he have bad knees? Why wasn't he able to? He didn't look that good against Skull. Was it that with these bad knees, he couldn't cut off the ring? And with these bad knees, that's why he can't, he wasn't able to finish Charlo because he couldn't chase him around. And so it starts to appear that Canelo has bad knees. If you watch the fights, it looks like, and maybe that's why, he hasn't been able to knock these guys out lately, because, the power, at least in that right hand, comes from you pressing off with the ball of the big toe on the right leg. And maybe with his bad, and you look the way he throws the punches, and you can make a case that Canelo's got bad knees. So, that being said, does that give Crawford a chance? Because Canelo's got bad knees. And then I happened to see the fight of Crawford against Bradis Prescott, which was early in Crawford's career. It was his first 10-round fight. Prior to that, he hadn't fought nobody with any type of name. And they were both on the undercard of Mike Alvarado versus Brandon Rios 2. So people went to that fight wanting to see not a boxing exhibition, but just a fight. Two guys in the middle of the ring just throwing blows, right? And Bradis Prescott was on the undercard as a 140-pounder. He was going to fight this Russian southpaw who 2 weeks prior to the fight day backs out. So Crawford, who was also on the undercard, they see if he'd step up and fight Bradis Prescott, because Bradis Prescott was somewhat of a name at 140. His first 20 fights, there was 18 knockouts. He was like a knockout artist, a big guy at 140, exciting fighter from Colombia, and they wanted to keep him on the card. So Crawford, who had a fight at 135 scheduled, he stepped in to fight the bigger guy, the bigger fighter. He had a bigger name. He was bigger in size at 140 versus Crawford at 135. And he was a big puncher, known as a big puncher, you know. And Crawford took the fight. And no one had really heard of Crawford, you know, and like they said about Jesus, you know, what good comes out of Omaha? They weren't expecting much from this guy, even though he was undefeated. He hadn't fought nobody, and a smaller guy. So he went into the fight as the underdog, really as David versus this Goliath, right? And he puts on a boxing clinic. And for 10 rounds, he just dominates this guy from the outside. It wasn't really an exciting fight. And the people that were wanting to see that would be attracted to a Brandon Rios Mike Alvarado fight were booing, because it was just like a technical masterpiece, but low punch output and no one going down, not really hurting anybody. But Crawford clearly was dominating this guy from the beginning to the end. And in the 10th round, and he switched to southpaw early on, and to stay away from this big puncher's right hand, And when you looked at the punch output, the majority of his shots landed, 67 of them were on the left side of Bradis Prescott's face. And because of that southpaw right jab, and even the southpaw left hand was landing on the left side of Bradis Prescott's face. Because why? Because he was circling away from the power and staying on this guy's left side. And that's where he was landing the shots, staying away from that right hand, staying on the outside, boxing beautifully, And so in the 10th and final round, Crawford, who had thoroughly dominated this guy for 9 rounds, tries to end this thing with an exclamation point and goes for the knockout in the 10th round. You could see that in the 10th round, he's like, I'm going to try to knock this guy out. And he went for it. He went at the guy in the 10th round, landed some big shots, but couldn't move the guy. Obviously landing shots, but couldn't knock him out. So for the final 2 minutes of that 10th round, he just kind of cruised to a victory on the outside, on the left side, just pot-shotting this guy and controlling him when he realized he couldn't knock him out. And with 40 seconds to go in the fight that he had dominated from the beginning to end, even the announcers were like, this fight could go either way. Bradis Prescott could still knock him out. They were still not convinced that Crawford had won the fight with 40 seconds to go. They're like, this little guy could get knocked out still. But he didn't get knocked out, and he won an easy decision victory over the much favored bigger guy, Bradis Prescott. And I saw that fight, and I'm like, well, shoot, there's the blueprint to beat Canelo, if he is indeed a one-legged fighter. If he has bad knees, right, he could just do that same thing, stay on the outside. And they say, oh, but he's not going to be able to take Canelo's punches. Canelo will punch him on the shoulders. And where does Canelo punch the guy on the shoulders? On the left shoulder. I'm sorry, on the left shoulder. On the left shoulder, you look at Callum Smith, and Bivol's left shoulder was all banged up because a right-handed fighter, he leads with that left shoulder, so it's out in front to get hit, and Canelo was just beating it up so they couldn't even lift that arm and throw the jab. And but guess what? Crawford, a southpaw, moving to his right, his left shoulder is gonna be away. And I doubt Canelo is going to be able to hit it if he fights in the southpaw stance and circles to his right. So when I saw all these things, I'm like, and I had originally said, man, there's no way. There's no way he beats Canelo. But with what I'd seen recently, I said, no, there is a chance. If Canelo can't move, if he's a one-legged fighter, if he can't move that knee and close in on Crawford, maybe he fights the way he fought Bradis Prescott and wins an easy decision, maybe not a super exciting fight, but I see a way for the little guy, for David to beat Goliath. And actually, that David-Goliath fight, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even a match, because David, he realized he had a superior strategy. He's like, this big old guy, obviously I'm not going to go in there and fight him close. I'm going to stay on the outside with my sling and just pot shot him. You know, that's how I'm going to cruise to an easy victory against this guy. And that's what he did, right? I don't want to put on my armor, the king's armor. I just want to stay light. And that's how I'm going to beat this guy. I mean, he had a great strategy, and it was an easy win for David over Goliath. And then I saw the weigh-in and the ceremonial weigh-in, and Crawford looked like he had put on the king's armor. He looked like he had just come back from a barbecue and had everything, you know what I mean? He looked 20 pounds heavier than the morning of the official weigh-in. Just all bloated, about to get itis and go take a nap. And so I'm like, man, Crawford, you should have stayed light like you were at the weigh-in. Fight this guy on the outside, and because he's not going to be able to move on that bad leg. And so I'm not sure. I'm not sure who wins, but I do think Crawford has a chance, which I didn't think a week ago. And then I saw Canelo, even after he got off of the Escalade, he's walking into the gym. He's walking like an old athlete. He's kind of has that Michael Jordan old athlete bad knees walk, you know, like Shannon Sharp walking into Total Wines, you know, that old athlete with the bad knees. He kind of walks like that. Like Earl Campbell with the bad knees, like OJ with the bad knees. Dave Chappelle makes a joke about how OJ was just fucking like that, gonna take a knee, and he had with them bad knees. That's how kind of Canelo walks when he had that white suit on with the grand arrival. He kind of was walking like an old athlete with them bad knees. Because I mean, you think about it, Canelo's been 67 fights, and 40 of those probably have been full 8-week camps. You know, his first 29, 30 fights were just one right after another. It wasn't like a 8-week camp. He was just always staying in shape, and he was young. But I mean, probably his last 40 fights have been full 8-week camps. And how many of those can you do in a lifetime? Away from home, just running every day, training in 6 hours a day. That's taxing on the body. Whereas Crawford, who is older, who's going to be 38 next week, he's 37 to Canelo's 34, but he's only had like 41 fights. And in the last 6 years, he's I don't know if he made a decision or what to save himself, but he's only fought once a year. So it's 1 8-week camp a year, and then 44 weeks to recover. Versus Canelo, who he's had like 11 fights in the last 5 years. You know, that's tough on the knees, man. So if Canelo has bad knees, if he's a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest, particularly that right knee, I see there's a possibility for Crawford to win. I didn't have my balls to put money on it, but I don't know. So it's an interesting fight. It's not a foregone conclusion that Canelo's just going to walk through this guy. Because the question is, can he walk? You know, how well can he move on that bad knee? If it's not a bad knee, it's an easy win for Canelo. But so I'm speculating that he may have a bad knee. And if it does, Crawford has a chance. If not, Canelo's going to blow him out of the water. Anyways, I just wanted to record that before the fight so people know what I was thinking, so I could maybe say I told you so. All right? Let's enjoy the fight.